going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking About Baseball. Today, I will be ranking the MLB center fielders going into next year. We are so close to the end of the series. Only 4 days left, including today, and it is almost Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everyone, and thank you all for watching this series. We are so close to getting 200 subscribers. I don't know if we're able to get it by Christmas, but if we aren't, hopefully we are able to get 200 by the new year. But anyway, let's get into it with number 34, and that is Kyle Isbell of the Royals. He's just not really all that great at anything, in my opinion. His defense is pretty terrible. He's a little bit fast, but his hitting overall is just really bad. I don't think he'll turn into a very good player. I do think the Royals are going to sign a free agent center fielder, probably one of the two lower ones, because I don't think they're looking to sign someone like Cody Bellinger. But I do think that Kyle Isbell will be replaced by someone by the beginning of next year. At number 33, I have Victor Robles of the Nationals. He got DFA'd, but eventually got picked back up by them, and he's just pretty much absolutely terrible. He's a great defensive center fielder, but he's another guy who just has absolutely no bat in him. He cannot hit whatsoever. He's also, just like Kyle Isbell, pretty fast, and like I said, amazing on defense. His hitting is just absolutely terrible, though, and that's why he's so low at 33. At 32, I have Jake Meyers from the Astros. He probably should not be their starting center fielder because he's not really all that good. He doesn't hit very well. He doesn't field very well. He's not super fast. He's just pretty much below average at everything he does. And he's just not really all that great of a player for a team that is trying to go back to the World Series and has been a contender for a very long time now. I think that the Astros could be looking for a guy like Cody Bellinger, but I think are more likely to trade for someone or sign someone more on the level of Kevin Kiermaier to replace Jake Meyers. At number 31, I have Cubs rookie Pete Crow-Armstrong. They called him up in September, and he looked absolutely horrific, but I think he's going to play really solid next year. The only reason he's this low is because I just have not seen him play good in the majors, at all. He was even terrible at the end of last year. I personally think he's going to be really solid next year, but that could just be some of my Cubs bias. He's a great defender and really fast, and if he's able to hit well in the majors next year, you will see that he's a pretty solid contact hitter, and if he can develop his power, he could be a top 10 and maybe even top 5 center fielder in the future. At number 30, I have Phillies outfielder Johan Rojas. He's another guy at the bottom here, and this is going to be kind of common throughout the center fielders, who is just an absolute freak on defense. He's very fast as well, and he's just a defensive phenom, but on offense, he's not really all that great. In the regular season, he played pretty good for the Phillies, but after that, in the playoffs, he looked absolutely atrocious with them in the playoffs, and I think him batting so bad was one of the few reasons that the Phillies did not make it to the World Series again last year. He was just a complete automatic out in their lineup, and that's definitely a rough thing to have, but he helped them out a lot defensively. At number 29, I have another defensive phenom, and that is Miles Straw. He has just about 2 home runs in the last 3 years or so, which is absolutely disgusting to say that he's even a starting caliber player. But unfortunately for baseball fans, he is. He's an amazing defender, like I said, and he's pretty fast, but his hitting is just absolutely atrocious. Even if he was hitting 270, which he's not, 2 home runs in 3 years is just completely unacceptable. You can be a contact hitter, but you cannot be that much of a contact hitter. And really, Miles Straw isn't even that much of a contact hitter. And he's carried all the way up to 29, which is not high at all, only by his fielding. At number 28, I have Austin Meadows' brother, Parker Meadows. He looked really solid in the last month or two for the Tigers at the end of the season. He had a nice walk-off home run that you may be seeing right now, and he just looked pretty solid for them as a rookie. He is projected to be playing center field and Riley Green to move to one of the corner spots right now, but Parker Meadows is another great defender, and he proved last year that he can also be a great hitter even at the major league level. At number 27, I have Willie Castro of the Twins. Their center fielder for many years has been Byron Buxton, but after all of his injury concerns that he's had for so long now, he has been pretty much officially moved to DH, which is unfortunate to see, but Willie Castro is still pretty alright. He's pretty much just the definition of a mid-tier player. His contact is fine, his power is below average, his fielding is pretty good. He's just right in the middle of all of the players, and that's why he's ranked at number 27. At number 26, I have Jose Azocar of the Padres. Last year, Trent Grisham was their center fielder, but after getting traded alongside Juan Soto to the Yankees, as Okar is currently projected to play center for them. I think he can be a pretty good player for them, actually, if he can just hit better. His defense has looked really good, and even though he's a pretty short player, I think that he has a lot of potential to kind of become a sort of Nick Madrigal for the Padres. Obviously not defense-wise, but kind of size and hitting-wise. I think he could be just a solid contact hitter, but based on how he's played in the past and pretty much his whole career, I don't really think he's ever going to find all that much power. At number 25, this is one of the guys I was hinting at. The Royals might sign earlier, and that is Harrison Bader. He's another absolute defensive phenom, and he's also extremely fast, one of the fastest players in the entire league. His only problem is that the last few years he has not been very good on offense. When he first came into the league with the Cardinals, he looked pretty solid, and then he got traded to the Yankees in the Jordan Montgomery deal, where he also looked really good for them, especially in the playoffs that year. In 2023, after his great 2022 year, he just did not look the same. He got DFA'd by the Yankees and ended up going to the Rays, where he also didn't look very good. So if he's able to rebound back to his 2022 season, I think he could be a really solid add for a team, but I don't really know if he's going to be able to do that. Number 24, I have Brenton Doyle of the Rockies. He looked pretty solid in his rookie year last year. He showcased more power than I expected, and his contact was also pretty alright, but all of his talent comes on defense. He's an above-average defender, but the main part where his defense really shines is his absolute cannon of an arm. The Rockies' outfield is very offset because Charlie Blackmon plays in right field sometimes, and he has an absolute noodle arm. But in left and center, they have two of the best, if not the best, outfield arms in the whole league in Nolan Jones and, of course, Brenton Doyle. And I think if he continues to progress, because I think Brenton Doyle played a lot better than anyone expected once he got called up last year, I think that he can be a really solid star for this Rockies team that is not looking like they're going to do good next year or in the future. At number 23, I have Alek Thomas of the Diamondbacks. He's coming off of a really solid playoff outlook, and even though he has not had a very good regular full season yet, I think that if he can take what he did in the playoffs this season and put it into 2024, he could be a really solid starter for a Diamondbacks team that's going to have a much bigger challenge now with one of the best teams in baseball history, in my opinion, the 2024 Dodgers in their division. Alek Thomas is another guy who's a great defender. He's a great defender, although he doesn't have the greatest arm. His bat absolutely exploded in the playoffs last year, and if he's able to keep that up for even a little bit less than exploding off the bat for a full season, I think he can be really solid. He just has not done it yet. At number 22, I have a rookie from last year and now a second-year player, Esteury Ruiz. He's an absolute speed demon, led the AL in stolen bases, and was second in the entire league just behind Ronald Acuna Jr., who obviously had the 40-70 season, the first in history. He's, like I said, an absolute speed demon, pretty solid out there in the outfield and center at defense, and his contact is also pretty solid, but definitely needs improvement. And based on his build and how his archetype is, I don't think he's ever going to be able to develop power. But currently on an absolutely terrible athletics team, he's one of the few bright spots on their squad, and I think will be one of their all-stars in the future because, unfortunately, they do need one. At number 21, I have another free agent that I hinted could go to the Royals, and that is Michael A. Taylor. He's coming off of a pretty bad offensive season for the Twins, but the year before that he was really good, and he's always been an outstanding defensive center fielder all around on defense. He has pretty good power, and he's shown that with the Twins the last 2 years, but his contact and batting average have been pretty low, so if he's able to bring that up, I think he could be a really nice add for any team that's looking for a center fielder, which is a lot of contenders down there at the bottom, like the Astros, Cubs, Phillies, Guardians. I don't really know if the Guardians are going to be a contender, but anyway, moving on to the top 20, and that will be beginning with Garrett Mitchell of Brewers. He's a really solid center fielder in my opinion, and even though he hasn't quite had a full season yet, I am excited to see when he does have his first full season because I think he will be great. He will not be playing center field for all that much longer as Jackson Chourio, who might not even be playing in the majors next year but will be earning $10 million from the Brewers after being signed to an extension, will be taking over the center field job, but currently it is Garrett Mitchell as Chourio is still below the age of 20. Even if Mitchell is playing in a corner outfield spot, he'll still be be able to be amazing. He crushes right-handed pitching, but against lefties, he's just absolutely horrific. If he's able to develop more power and get his contact better and show like it was in the minors for the Brewers, I think he will be a great Major League center fielder and an easy top 10 guy in the future. He just needs to show that he can put all of that together and put it together for a full season. At number 19, I have Tommy Edman. This may be a little bit low for him, but he's never really played center field in his career, and that's why I'm showing a little bit of concern. After the Cardinals have made some moves, and now that they have Nolan Gorman back and Brendan Donovan and have called up a guy in Mason Wynn, it is projected that Tommy Edman will be moving to the outfield and playing center field. He has played center before and played it a little bit at the end of the year last year, but it's never been his main primary position, and I think that is drawing a little bit of concern for me. Even though he is a great defensive shortstop, I'm sure he'll be fine in center field, but his bat is also not great, so if his defense diminishes, he will be dropping a ton. His contact looked pretty solid last year, but he kind of fell off in the second half. I don't really expect him to ever get all that much power, but if he's able to get more contact in the future, I think he could be better than 19. I'm just pretty much putting him this low because of precautionary measures. And number 18 and the next couple of guys are just kind of people who had down seasons last year, but I do think can be really solid. But number 18 is Jose Siri of the Royals. He has a ton of power in his bat, just not all that much contact, and I don't really think he'll ever have all that much more. He got traded to the Rays from the Astros, and the Rays changed him and made him better, just like they do to every other player they've ever had. Siri is also a great defender, and he's also a big speedster, just like a lot of other center fielders, like I said on this list. If he's able to develop his contact, he's another guy who I think could easily be top 10 in the future. He just needs to get one more tool down pat, and he will easily be a really solid player for a Rays team that's kind of in a lingo right now because I don't really know if they're going to be good or bad next year. At number 17, I have brand new Yankee Alex Verdugo. He will be their starting center fielder. It's kind of mixed up among the outfield right now. Fangraphs projects it to be him in left, Aaron Judge in center, and Juan Soto in right. I personally think it'll be Juan Soto in left, Verdugo in center, and Judge in right because Verdugo does have some experience in center but has mainly played a corner outfield spot. Verdugo's big part on defense is his arm. He's not an amazing defender, but he has a really solid arm, and even though he's coming off of a down season last year, his contact still looked good enough, and if he's able to hit into the right field corner in Yankee Stadium, he could easily hit 30 home runs next year, and I think the Yankee Stadium fences and walls are going to help him a lot next year. At number 16, I have Dalton Varsho of the Blue Jays. He got traded in a big deal between them and the Diamondbacks, which sent him to Toronto and Lourdes Gurriel and Gabriel Moreno back to the Diamondbacks, which so far has been a big win for the D-backs as both of their chance players turned out, and Dalton Varsho had a pretty rough season for the Blue Jays last year. He can also catch, which gives him a lot of versatility, and in the outfield he's a really good defender. Just his bat completely diminished last season after a really good 2022. I still think that he can be a really good player for a Blue Jays team that is also kind of in lingo right now, just like the Rays. But I do think that Dalton Varsho, if he wants to keep moving up, is going to have a better season than he did last year. Beginning the top 15, I have Cedric Mullins of the Orioles. He had a breakout year in 2021, and since then has just been kind of middle of the road or slightly above average. His defense is still amazing, and even though he doesn't have the greatest of arms, he's a pretty solid defender, and if he's able to get more contact because he still has kept the power throughout these 3 breakout years for him, I think that he will be able to do much better. He's on an Orioles team now that is looking like they should be playoff bound for maybe even the next 10 years if they're able to keep their stars. He has a lot more lineup protection than he has in previous years, and I'm sure that he'll be able to play better in 2024, and that's why I have him at number 15. At number 14, I have yet another AL East player. I just now realized that all 5 of them are in a row. Jarren Duran from the Red Sox being the highest, and Mullins, Varsho, Verdugo, and Siri below him. I didn't even do that on purpose. Some of them got mixed up because of trades and things happening. But anyway, Jarren Duran just finally had his first good season. He was a really highly touted prospect for the Red Sox and was looking like he was going to do really good, but it never truly happened until just this last year. He's alright on defense, but he's another guy with kind of a noodle arm. But his hitting last year was really solid. He looked really good. His contact is amazing, and he's another lefty who mainly hits righties, but is actually pretty solid against lefties too. He has not yet developed the power in the major leagues, but he's shown it in the minors, and so I would not be surprised if he's able to add that to his game in the next coming years and move himself into the top 10, which I think is which I think is possible for a lot of these guys in the mid-10s right now. At number 13, I have free agent Kevin Kiermaier. He's another guy absolutely outstanding on defense, and he's coming off of a career resurgence year with the Blue Jays on offense. For the Rays, he was just an outstanding defender for a very long time and never really hit well at the plate, usually hitting in the 7 through 9 spot. But last year, by the end of the season, he was hitting much higher as he had his most productive offensive season of his career and looked much better, and that gave him a lot of value as he was pretty much on a prove-it deal last year and is now going to get some pretty good money in free agency. At number 12, speaking of free agency, I have the Giants' big signing, Jung-Hoo Lee. He's outstanding all around the ball. He's a great contact hitter, amazing at fielding. He has won the KBO's Gold Glove Award many years in a row now. He just started developing power recently in the NPB, in the KBO across the sea, but my only concern is obviously he has never played a game of Major League Baseball in his life, and that is why I do have him at number 12 and not higher. But if he plays in the major leagues just like he played in the KBO, which I find highly unlikely, I do still think he can be really good though. I think that he could easily move up, but I just don't see him hitting 300 with 20 home runs and a Gold Glove next year. Although, for a Giants team that could really use a player like that, I wouldn't be totally surprised if it does happen. At number 11, I have James Outman of the Dodgers. He is mainly carried last year by the first couple of months because in the second half he definitely fell off, but he proved that he can be a really good player for a Dodgers team that now, even though he's a great hitter, he'll probably be hitting towards the bottom of the lineup in. He's a great power hitter. His contact definitely fell off towards the end of the season last year and he had a pretty low batting average, but if he's able to raise that a little bit and pair it with his pretty solid power and great defense, he can be a really good center fielder for a Dodgers team that definitely needs another big bat in their lineup, and I'm being completely sarcastic because they don't. Getting the top 10, I have Leody Taveras of the Rangers. He's coming off of a really solid playoff outing, and I think that he will continue that playoff performance into the year next year. He's coming off of a World Series victory with the Texas Rangers, and last year was easily his best season of his career and his breakout season. During the regular season, he just looked really good throughout the whole thing, and in the playoffs, he also looked really solid. He's a great defender with pretty good contact, and also, if he hits the ball well, it will go very far. He just doesn't barrel it up enough, and if he's able to do that more often, he can be a really solid center fielder for the Rangers and get higher than just number 10. At number 9, I have TJ Friedl of the Reds. He's coming off of, also like Leody Taveras, a breakout season, and I do think, like I've mentioned in a few videos so far, that the Reds will be winning their division next year. I think Friedel's just a really solid guy. He's a great defender, and his bat really woke up last year. His batting against left-handed pitchers still needs a lot of work, but against righties, he's a really solid guy. And if he can continue to progress against left-handed pitchers, like I said, he's going to be really solid for the Reds next year. At number 8, I have Brandon Nimmo from the Mets. He's also a pretty okay defender, but his bat is where most of his value comes from. He's coming off of a down year after getting a huge extension by the Mets, and even though he's not really a great player, he's shown that he can be really solid in the past, and that's why I have him at number 8, although that could be a little bit too high for him. At number 7, I have Jazz Chisholm of the Marlins. He is one of the most dripped-out players in the baseball and one of the most fun to watch. He's just a really cool player, and I think a lot of people enjoy watching him. Unfortunately, he got injured a lot last year, but he was on a Marlins team that made the playoffs, even though he wasn't playing that well and he got injured. And if he can have a breakout season, which I personally do think that he will next year, he will be able to lead the Marlins to a really good season, and he can be the star of a team that he didn't really get to be the star of last year. At number 6, I have Brian Reynolds from the Pirates. He's honestly pretty bad on defense, and that Pirates have considered moving him to a corner outfield spot, which may even be what's happening next year, but he is currently projected to be their center fielder. He's mainly just great on offense, and this is why he's this high, and I think he's also, just like Jazz Chisholm, going to have the best season of his career next year and join a loaded center field position that kind of was loaded and then kind of fell off with guys like Aaron Hicks in the top 5 earlier. But now a lot of center fielders have been getting much better, and the position is reloaded now. And speaking of guys who have gotten better, that is true for a lot of these guys up here, and one of them is number 5 and now third-year player Michael Harris of the Braves. He's going into his 3rd year of his career, and even though it was looking like last year was going to be an awful season for him, I drafted him in fantasy baseball and dropped him within a month and a half after he played terrible. He completely rebounded in the second half of the season and finished with very similar stats to his first year, and obviously kept his outstanding defense that he had the year before. If he continues to progress with the Braves, that is going to form a nasty outfield if Jared Kelenic can also get to his top prospect form, and of course they're joining the reigning NL MVP Ronald Acuna Jr. Michael Harris II, though, is still a great player, and even though he's not really viewed as a star on this Braves team because they have so many amazing players, he's still really good and would be the star on about half the MLB teams, and I don't even know if he's even the top 5 best player on the Braves, because I would say that Acuna, Olsen, and Riley are all better than him on offense, and probably even Ozzie Albies as well, and they also have Spencer Strider, of course, so I would probably put him at 6, but he's still obviously a great player. At number 4, we have the biggest career resurgence here on this list, and probably in this whole video, and that is Cody Bellinger. He won NL Comeback Player of the Year with the Cubs on a 1-year prove-it deal, and unfortunately for me as a Cubs fan, will probably not be re-signing with them. He had a great season last year for them and just barely missed them out on taking them to the playoffs. But I do think that he's about to get some big money in the free agency, and whatever team does end up signing him, I'm sure he will take them to the playoffs because it's going to be a big-time contender. And I personally think, and according to a lot of people, it's between the Cubs and the Blue Jays. So currently, I just need to cross my fingers that he comes back to Chicago. Speaking of Chicago, we have another Chicago player, and that is number 3, Luis Robert. He is a great player for the White Sox. He just needs to raise his batting average up a little bit. Every other thing that he does other than contact-wise is amazing. He broke out last year with a huge power season. His defense has always been great since he joined the majors, and now that he had a huge breakout power year, he just needs to prove that his contact can get better if he really wants to be a great center fielder and pass up one of the best at all time, who's currently ranked at number 2 for me, and that is Mike Trout of the Angels. He now has to be the star of this Angels team again now that Shohei is gone, and I don't think that he's going to be able to do that. Even though he's only in his low 30s, it seems like he's a 37-year-old based on how much he gets injured now. It's unfortunate to see him fall down and decline so much, kind of like Jacob deGrom, but he's still definitely a star of this game all time. And even though he's not going to be considered the best now because his career just fell off so early, he's still an outstanding player. And if he can just put together a full season, he's still going to be absolutely amazing. He has just not put together a full season in a very long time now, and that is his number 1 problem, is injuries. Finally, my number 1 player on the list is Julio Rodriguez of the Mariners. He's just an all-around absolutely amazing player. He definitely got ballooned up last year by his August stats because he was having a pretty rough season, but at the end of the year he absolutely exploded. But his defense and base running were also amazing all year, and his power and contact will continue to develop, and this is another sneak peek at my predictions video for next year that will be coming out on New Year's Day, maybe even at midnight, kind of depends on what I decide to do. He will be winning AL MVP next year in my opinion. But anyway, that is the end of my center fielder rankings. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you tomorrow on the 23rd for the right fielder rankings as we near the end of this series. Bye.